Hey everyone, I'm Joel Baird, the General Manager of Missoula Community Access Television, inviting you to this 4th edition of Out and About. Today we're going to visit with Carolyn Stevens, who's one of the caretakers at the Moon-Randolph Homestead, which is just a stone's throw away from downtown Missoula. Thanks for being on the show. So we're going to take a tour with you, right, of a little bit of what there is to see at the Moon-Randolph Homestead.
Yeah, we'll explore some of the historic buildings that are here and explore a little bit about the history of the site. We have livestock here, and so It's a living homestead, sort of a working homestead, and so we can explore a little bit of that too.
Great. Join us for the next 10 minutes when we take a look at the Moon-Randolph Homestead.
The Moon-Randolph Homestead is named that because of the names of the two families who lived here. The Moon family was the first family who filed the claim and then proved up on their claim to the homestead. And then the Randolph family actually lived here from the early 1900s all the way until the 1990s. And
wow.
It was Bill Randolph Jr. lived here as a bachelor in the house where I currently live. It looked a little different then.
Oh, it got spruced up.
Yeah, it got a little spruced up. The word homestead is, or at least how it applies to this homestead, it's a technical word to describe what Congress in the 1860s considered to be like a small farm out west. And at that point, in the 1860s, during the Civil War era, there weren't many American citizens here in the West, and Congress wanted to be able to govern the West, and so they needed citizens to be living there.
So they wanted to encourage people to seek out life in the West by giving them some incentives to do so?
Yes, and the incentives that they gave as part of the Homestead Act were that if any head of household, man or woman, over the age of 21, moved west and filed a small filing fee, filed their claim on 160 acres of land in the West, that person could own that land if, after 5 years of living there consistently, year-round, they built a home for themselves and improved the land with agriculture. And so if a head of household did that, then they could effectively own the land just for their time and labor. And Montana was actually one of the later places to be homesteaded, in part because it was farther away than places like Kansas or Nebraska, but also because it was farther north, which meant it was colder and more difficult to be here completely year-round, especially in that first year when you're moving to a piece of land that maybe, especially in this kind of treeless country. But that's what happened here in 1889. Ray and his wife Luella Moon moved to this 160-acre plot, and they filed their claim on this land. They built a cabin, which we'll be able to see. We call it the Moon Cabin for that reason. They lived there for 5 years. They built the central main section of the barn. They planted 75 apple trees and cherry trees on the site, many of which are still alive today. And they did a number of other things to make a life and make a home here. But you have to remember, 1889 in Montana history was a really long time ago. It was, to put it in context, it was, when the Bitterroot Salish people were still on their homeland in the Bitterroot. And so it was a really long time ago.
The town may have only been 6 years old when the people came here, just on the other side of that.
Yeah, and it was a hard place to homestead too. There are like 4 adjacent homesteads that had been attempted to be homesteaded, but the people who had tried had failed to prove up in that 5-year period.
Oh my gosh. And that's what they say, you didn't prove up. You don't get the land.
You didn't prove up. So that's what I mean by homestead. It's a technical term to describe that 160 acres in that legislation from the 1860s on through the beginning of the 20th century that brought so many people from the eastern U.S. out west.
Wow.
The other thing we're doing, something we have done every year for 17 years, this will be the 17th annual fall gathering, which is our annual fall festival and fundraiser. It used to be kind of like a small potluck, but it has grown in recent years into an incredible event. It's a ton of fun. We bring in a band. This year's band is Scrapyard Lullaby, which is Caroline Keyes' band. We have them on a trailer in the pasture set up, and they play beautiful folk music. Last year we put out a wooden dance floor for people to dance on. We have a bonfire. We press apples on our vintage cider press that was owned by the Randolph family. So kids can press apples and then drink the cider. We also, you pay to get in. It's $15 for adults and $7 for kids. Unless you buy tickets ahead of time, then it's $12 for adults and $5 for kids. You get a free meal with that. This year we're doing soups that will be made by Black Bear Soups, which is a small business in town. We are sourcing all of the meat and vegetables from local farms. All the meat and vegetables has been donated from local farms. And then we also have rolls from Le Petit, salad from Clark Fork Organics, which is a local farm. And then Western Cider is going to be there, and they're going to be selling hard cider and beer from Draftworks. And all proceeds from the sales of beer and cider also go to the homestead. So it's our biggest fundraiser. It's also a really, really magical event. You know, it's rare that people are able to be up here when the moon's rising and the sun is setting. It's a beautiful time of day to spend here. It's nice to have a warm meal with friends. The music is beautiful. It's just a magical event. It's from 4 to 10 p.m. So we start it early so that people with kids can come and keep it going late. It's a really nice time. This is actually from the Missoula Merc.
Oh, did you guys get it from the Merc?
We did, and it's not actually for the interior ceiling. When this structure was originally built, of course it was built with whatever materials were available, often for free and reused. The Randolphs used ceiling tiles that were from a building that had burned down in downtown Missoula as shingles for the roof. And so a lot of those tiles are not in good shape. And so we wanted to kind of build this structure in the same spirit. And so it just so happened that it was at the same time as the Merc was being deconstructed. And so we worked with Home Resource to get these tins that we can use as the roof. So this is the winch, and then the coal mine is just right that way. There was an old cable or rope that would go on the winch, and that would pull the coal cart out. So this will be really fun to interpret about, because it's so unique. Like a small subsistence scale coal mine is just not what you think of when you think of coal mine.
Right.
And so you really don't. And so
cottage industry coal.
Yeah. It helps kind of illuminate a little bit about what the past was like and how people use the resources that were available on their land to do things like heat their home or cook their dinner. So the Moon-Randolph Homestead is open every Saturday, May through October, from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can either walk over from one of the 3 trailheads on Waterworks Hill, or you can also drive on up to the homestead. We have a gate at our entrance. It's always closed because our neighbors have open range livestock, but you can always open the gate and close it behind you to come up. For more information about the homestead, you can follow us on Facebook. We have a Facebook account, it's Moon-Randolph Homestead. We also have an Instagram account where we post pictures of our livestock and the different projects that are happening up here. That's the best way to stay in touch. The Moon-Randolph Homestead is available for private tours, for photography sessions, for weddings and other events, as well as for field trips, educational opportunities. And if you're interested in any of those, you can always send us an email. It's moonrandolph@gmail.com, all lowercase, one word. Or you can call us at 406-728-0451.